Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Rob Nelson. I'm the CEO of Ninja Selling, and like every one of you on Monday morning, my inbox was full of both news and people saying, "What do you think?" And I'll tell you, Larry Kendall has this amazing phrase, and it is, "What comes up for you?" It's kind of his version of an open-ended question. And there's three people that I wanted to call that morning and say, "What comes up for you based upon these headlines?" And they were Larry Kendall, Jack Miller, and Mike Staver. So Larry, obviously the founder of Ninja Selling, Jack, the CEO of T360, sort of, in my mind, the intersection of thought leadership and consultancy in the real estate space. And Mike Staver is a coach, and he runs a coaching business that has led many executives, both in real estate and outside, through these types of transitions. And gentlemen, thank you for sitting down. I figured if we're going to have a conversation, we might as well record it. We might as well share it with others. So, Larry Kendall, what comes up for you?
Well, we say that the three keys to success are mindset, skill set, and action. So I think, first of all, what is our mindset around this event? This is my 52nd year in real estate. I thought back on some of the events that have happened and changes over the last 52 years. I got in real estate in 1973. The big change then was franchising. Everybody said, well, if you don't join the franchise, you're going to be out of business. And so there was a lot of nervousness about that. Then came what I call the financial supermarket with Merrill Lynch and Sears and Coldwell Banker and all of that, and followed by banks and real estate. You're going to walk into a bank, there's going to be a real estate desk there. They're going to take away, all the realtors will go out of business. And then, of course, in the 90s, the internet, and people will be able to buy a house with a mouse. The famous, they're coming over the lions are coming over the hill, and lots of scare tactics, a lot of fear. But I think when we look back on those were not really changes. They were events. And for the people involved in them, they were change. And certainly now with the Compass and Anywhere, it's a huge change for the people in those organizations. But for the industry, I would say it's probably more of an event that is not going to affect the rest of us as much. It will affect, obviously, but certainly for the people in their organizations, they're going to experience some change. And, we can talk more about the type of change that's going on in there, but that's my perspective. How do you view this in your mindset? And I would view it as an event that is interesting. We'll watch, we'll stay tuned, but then we need to go about our own business, take care of business ourselves.
Maybe the right place to ground ourselves in this conversation is in the facts. So some of the reality is these are publicly traded companies. They have to come out with this information. And what do we know? What are the facts at this point? What do we not know? And what is sort of the timeline for knowing how the deal is going to come together?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the time frame of the actual merger is going to take a year. I mean, this is as much as I love Larry's language about it being an event, not a change. This is a process, not an event. Also, it is something where we're gonna go through a process of these companies, going through regulatory approvals, and then even if the merger is approved, which it's likely to be approved, I don't think it won't be approved. That it will then be a process for these companies to actually logistically put themselves together. That's going to take some time. Both the personnel, the management staff, who's running what, the technology, the data, the kind of the entire program. So these companies coming together is going to be years in the making. And I agree with Larry's assertion that, for the practitioner real estate will be the least impacted for a while. Like if you're out there and you're selling real estate, or if you are a good broker owner leader, you're running a great shop, you can sleep well at night. Like there's nothing. Don't wake up in a blind sweat. Now I do think, and we do think at T360, looking at these scenarios, like we did just create a massive player, or in the process of creating a massive player. And anytime you have a company or singular entity that in some markets, I mean, in the Bay Area, in the DC market, we're talking 40%, 50% market share across that combined entity, right? That will drive action in those markets. It's a little different from maybe what we've experienced, especially with some of the rules questions around private listings and things like that. So there are some things that will change. And the other players that are in our game right now, like Stone Point, who acquired Keller Williams and also owns Lone Wolf, Rocket, who owns Redfin, Remax, that's kind of building a new path for itself. Like, there will be responses from the other large companies because they're going to look at that market share and say, well, we need to make some competitive moves. And I agree. I don't think that's going to impact the day-to-day practitioner in 2025 and 2026, but in 2027, in 2028, in 2029, you're probably going to see some new things. You're probably going to see some new competitive pressures and some new dynamics. I also agreed with everything Larry said about, like, this industry is an industry that loves to be afraid of the next thing coming, right? Like, we're like kind of scaredy cats. It's weird. I talk to people and it's like, oh, well, this is going to eat us and this is going to eat your lunch. And, and I'm looking around and, like, that hasn't happened. Right? If you're good at selling real estate, if you're a good listing agent, good buyer's agent, good broker, good manager, leader, you're going to be fine. Now, you do have to navigate the changes. You do have to pay attention to what's going on in the market, but net, you're going to be fine. Just don't not pay attention to what's going on in your market and take action. You should absolutely do that. You should do that anyway. So that's not a new thing.
So, Mike, the other side of this coin, right, is the human aspect, the emotions and the energy that comes up when change happens. And I mean, it's really easy to say, well, just pick up a copy of Who Moved My Cheese and read that again. We've all been there, right? But you've also been the guy who was the confidant in these types of transactions. What energy is surrounding those who are impacted, and what do we need to do, whether we're impacted or not, to insulate ourselves and focus on what matters and control what doesn't matter, or what we don't know, to Jack's point? There's a lot that we don't know. It might take a year.
Yeah. And, speaking of that, and I so appreciate you having me and being on the panel with you, Jack, and you, Larry. It always occurs to me, I love what you said about the scaredy cat thing, Jack. I think the beginning of the disruption is the acceptance that fear is the only emotion we get to choose. And we get to choose every day when we get up. Where am I going to focus my energy? And one of the primary drivers of one of the primary needs of all humans is the need for certainty. And so when we see things like this occur, there's our brains, and they have since the cave people days, immediately trigger, speaking of the lion coming over the hill, it immediately triggers this sense of uncertainty, this sense of, what about me? This sense of, how is this going to affect me? And so my encouragement is that whether you're an individual practitioner, whether you're a broker owner, whether you're a CEO, a branch leader, wherever you find yourself in the tapestry of this great business, that we focus on this idea of controlling the controllables and being really focused on the certainty that we do have. The brain naturally wants to say, well, what about this? And what about that? And what if the Jack in the Box pops up? And the fact of the matter is that we'll deal with it when it comes. But for right now, I just before this podcast was coaching a top agent in a major metropolitan market, and we were talking about it. My counsel to her, as my counsel is to your listeners, is let's focus on the controllables and let's help people go to the better place by being certain about what we know today and what we can do today to continue to move the business forward and help customers have great experiences. I think that's fundamentally it. And then as things start to unfold, we'll be more prepared to deal with those things. But a mindset of, I'm focused where I am, I'm dealing with what I have, with the resources I have available to me to deliver the best experience possible, I think is the best place to focus.
It always is. What comes up for me in this conversation, 10 minutes in, I'm not sure the word relationships has been said yet, but all three of us will agree that in this business, and really in business at large, relationships are the currency. At the end of the day, this acquisition was valued, and all real estate brokerages are valued by the relationships that the agents have with their clients. Let's be real. That is the driver of revenue for real estate brokerages, is relationships. Larry, I want to throw this back to you because I think you are the relationship guy. You're the thought leader that kind of honed into that early. And that is the core mission of Ninja Selling, is to create a relationship-based business. When you think of relationships in this situation, both at the level of an organizational leader, whether you're a CEO or a sales manager, or you're an individual agent who is acting as a leader, leading your people through change in their lives, what comes up for you around relationships in times of uncertainty?
Well, what comes up for me in relationships in our industry is that we always hear that the 3 laws of real estate are location, location, location. I always laugh and say, well, that's one of the 3 laws. There's really 3. That's location's one. The other one's timing, timing, timing. I've seen, we're in a cyclical business, and where are we in the timing? But the real law, the biggest law of real estate is relationship, relationship, relationship. And if you look at any of the surveys, any of the research, what you'll discover is most people choose their realtor based on relationship. And so relationship wins. I think that's going to be important. That's probably, well, I don't think probably, I think it's more important than the flag you're waving or the banner that you're under. That's important too. The resources that your organization provides is important, but basically buyers and sellers choose people, and they choose that relationship.
Yeah. And I think the same is to be said about if you're a sales manager or a CEO, your sales force is choosing a relationship with you, and how you show up during these times of change is incredibly important, because the truth is there's a lot of portability in this industry, and it's pretty easy to move from one company to another. And I believe that value is going to be attracted to, so the agents who are productive are going to be attracted to stability in this market. And stability doesn't mean that you're removed from this transaction or from change at large. Because, Jack, I want to throw this back to you, and I think this is going to emphasize that point. Do you feel this is the beginning of major consolidation in the industry, or do you feel this is the end?
Yeah, well, so the consolidation story has been one. We've been writing about this for 20 years. In the Salon Trez report, I joined Stefan in 2013 and started writing with him about the industry. And you can see it. We do a study every year called the Real Estate Almanac, and we look at the sales volume and unit transaction count of the top 1,000 brokerages and all the franchisors and all of the the entities that have company owned and franchises. And we've been analyzing that for 15 years now. And what we've seen is over the last 6 years, there is consolidation happening in the 1,000. The 1,000 moved from the top 1,000 brokerages about 6 years ago. We're approximately 45% of the sales volume in the U.S. It's now over 61% of the sales volume in the U.S. is in the top 1,000 brokerages. And I think what it means is that running a quality brokerage that supports agents that do a high transaction count, that do a lot of units, requires management talent. And there's not a lot of management talent out there. I mean, we run a talent and recruiting firm as part of what T360 does with our clients. And it's hard to find really talented leaders. They can manage all the things that you need to manage in real estate, because now it isn't just the agents, it's technology, it's the market, it's marketing. The consumer's a lot more savvy. So if you're running a brand, it takes more talent. So I think that what's happening is talented leaders are taking advantage of the market situation and the changes to build their organizations bigger. And I don't see that trend stopping. Like this isn't the end of consolidation. This is actually one of the reasons we rebranded to T360 and then I joined Stefan. Was our premise was this is going to grow up from a mom and pop industry to an industry we're going to have much bigger, more professional players and companies that are serving the space. And this is just yet another proof point along the way that happened. I mean, Larry, you remember, you've been around. So it's like, for a long time, there were only 2 acquirers, right? It was Anywhere and it was Home Services. They were the people that were doing the acquiring for a long time. But now we have many companies that are acquiring, right? It isn't just Compass, right? it's the Hannahs, it's a lot of the larger leading RE companies. So there's a lot of companies that are doing acquisitions now in order to grow. So I don't think this is the end of consolidation. I think that what we think is that this is going to continue that consolidation trend. We effectively, the analogy that Stefan used with me when we discussed this on Monday, he says, look, Compass and Anywhere coming together is like the airline industry. We just created American Airlines. Well, there's probably going to be a Delta, and there's probably going to be a United. There's probably going to be a Southwest. So they're in those top players. I think we're going to see some more consolidation. Stone Point is here. They bought Keller Williams. Rocket bought Redfin. They're probably not done, right? And there's other people looking and saying, hey, how can I want to compete. I want to play at that level. So I think that we're going to see more of it. It's definitely there from a sales volume perspective. It's absolutely happening. If you look at the top 1,000, you can see the unit volume and the sales volume going to the larger. And it is. You don't have to be huge to win in this industry. 1,000 brokerages. There's 1,000 brokerages that do 60-something% of the transaction, volume in the U.S. People listening on this call, you're with one of those brokerages today, probably, right? So that's just to say, follow leaders that are ambitious and growth-minded and looking at the market. That's who to follow, and who serve you well as an agent, or who serve your team well. Those are the people who are going to lead you into a bright future.
Yeah. Mike, this one comes up because it's so coaching centric, and I want to almost role play a scenario with you. Hearing you guys, two things seem like the real concern here. The first is distraction, and the second is lack of clarity. Those two things seem to be the real enemy of this type of environment, not this situation, but change at large. If you are an organizational leader, whether you're sitting in that C-suite or you're managing an office, or even you're an agent that has a team, and somebody is just freaked out, wigged out, they've found themselves distracted, they have found themselves with a lack of clarity, how can you get them back on track amidst this type of change?
Prescription medication.
No. Yeah, typically.
It's not necessary, but it helps. So there's a couple things. First, I'm going to wrap what Jack and Larry said. Two things. First thing is I love, and the reason I love Ninja and the reason I love the work T360 does is because we get that there's a holistic place in our universe. And yet, and I'm sure Larry and you, Rob, deal with this every single day, we talk about relationships, but in practice, we often execute like we're transactional people. And since we were little kids, everything was built on transactions. Eat your vegetables, you can have ice cream. Do your homework, you can go out with your friends. And so we've gotten this psychological habit over decades that the world operates in a, you give me this and I'll give you this. And so what's interesting about the transaction of the Compass Anywhere announcement is that there is a tendency to want to focus on the transaction that is occurring. But I think if I was going to get somebody back on track, I would say, if we really want to be about relationships, if we're really not just saying it's a relationship business, but we want to adopt and apply the principles, are you, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, today leaning in on your most important and critical relationships? Are you spending the time? Are you making the calls? Are you taking them out to lunch? Are you gathering people just to process and talk? Are you doing the things that relationship-centric people do? Or are you saying, oh, yes, it's about relationships, but your behavior manifests itself in transactional behavior? I'm a big believer that what we believe manifests itself in what we do. And so if we really believe it's about relationship, then the first thing I would suggest to that manager who's coming off the rails, or the leader who's upset and clearly not upset, but what should I say, uncomfortable. And I got a lot of those calls from some of the higher places in our industry this week. I say, let's really do what we say we're about, which is create the dynamic of relationship. The second point that I'll make, and you are probably aware of this, is I did some pretty big research about what makes particularly companies go at the branch level. And Jack, I love what you said about leadership. My whole world is absolutely that. This is one of the few industries where we tell a sales leader, You got to be a great meeting planner. You got to be a great coach. You got to be a great marketer. You got to be a great recruiter. You got to have all these things. And we discovered that there were 3 areas of focus that you had to have if you wanted to drive a world-class organization. Area number 1 is culture. You have to build a world-class culture, and you have to get people immersed in the culture and aligned with the culture. You don't have to agree with everything in the culture, but you need to be aligned with it. The second thing is a rigorous commitment to developing people, the extent to which you are focused on developing your people in a way that draws them closer to you. And then the third one, where most brokers, agents, managers, live, and that's growing units, volume, GCI, company dollar, et cetera. And all of your listeners right now are more comfortable leaning one place or the other. They're more comfortable in culture. They're more comfortable in growth. They're more comfortable with people. So that's what I would do. Lean hard into relationships and focus on the 3 things that you can impact right now and turn down the noise. I think that's the critical piece.
Can I jump in on that?
I want you both to react to this. So Jack, you take it then.
We talk to our broker clients all the time. We're in a time when you can change the rules. Like, this is when the rules can be different, right? Not just because of this merger, because of the market, because of AI, because of everything that's happened in our industry in the last 24 months. I mean, can you think of a time, and Stefan and I have been talking about this, we haven't seen a time of this much change. I mean, lawsuits, AI, crummy market conditions, all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to throw out the rule book, now is the time to do it. And go have those meetings. There are people that will talk to you today. They wouldn't go to lunch with you 3 years ago. They were too busy, right? They were too busy. They were too in their own business. They thought you were a competitive threat. They wouldn't have lunch with you. Today, people are looking for leadership. They're looking for help. They're looking for partners. They're looking for people to navigate what is a pretty tricky market and a tricky industry right now. So now's the time. It's like, don't play normal. Go have all, and I love that. Like, go sit down, break bread, go say, hey, things are kind of crazy, right? Well, let's talk about it. Because if you're a broker owner, there are agents that will talk to you, would talk to you before right now. There are other broker owners that are just as confused or more confused. They're at the end of their rope financially, maybe. I mean, throw out the rule book. Go have those conversations. Make some stuff happen. I promise you, that announcement happened on Monday. Guess what every ambitious executive was doing on Monday? They were all in meetings all day long. They were texting me. They're all in the war room going like, wow, the rule, how do we throw out our rule book? We're going to go have those conversations. That's what's happening. So for me, while, it's like, you can be scared by it, you can be whatever, but I'd say don't miss the moment. I mean, we are in a career making, business making, generational wealth making moment in our industry because of all of this change. And so go after it. Don't miss that moment where you can do some things that you couldn't have done 5 years ago because they wouldn't have taken your call. They were too busy making money. When everybody's making money in this industry, good luck talking to them. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to Larry. They don't want to talk to Rob. They don't want to talk to Mike. Right. But right now, they will if you're a leader and you have a plan and you're going places, they will talk to you because they probably need your help. They need your leadership. So that's just, I know I got pretty passionate there, but I've been trying to inject that into some people who are, that's the attitude. Like,
I love it. I've never seen Jack Miller throw his hands up like that, and I'm a fan of it. I love it when the gloves come off. So, Larry, same passion, intensity. I mean, I think that I'd love to hear what you say because Larry Kendall thinks of things differently than people. And I just, hearing this conversation, immediately I go to what comes up for you, Larry.
What comes up for me is we set our vision at 30,000 feet, but we make our money and we build our culture on the ground. And it's face-to-face, voice-to-voice. That's how it gets done. Relationship is a word that's often used. I agree. Our industry tends to be transactional. The transactions, I would say, result from the relationship. I think in building culture, I think the big challenge for Compass and for Anywhere is going to be, they've analyzed, obviously, the financials, the market share, all that stuff. They've got that figured out. The biggest challenge in bringing two big organizations like that together for me is the culture. How are they going to manage that, bring that culture together. I think if that's where I think the big change is going to be, with people who are in those organizations wondering, what happens to our culture? Is there a change there? What do we do? I always remember, Mike, your comment. You were at one of our Ninja leadership classes, and you said culture is a product of common values, common systems, and common language, among other things. But those three, I remember, stuck with me. And so when I look at Compass and Anywhere, one of the things that could happen, and maybe I'm praying that it will happen, but Ninja has worked with all of those companies quite extensively. And we do have a common value system, a common operating system at Ninja, a common language. And perhaps Ninja could be used in a way to bring all of those various pieces together and help be maybe part of the glue for their culture. Is one of the things that came up for me.
I want to talk about when things go wrong in these types of transactions, because it's really valuable to learn where it's gone wrong and the hindsight type scenarios. Jack, is there a situation that you can think of where, maybe not to this scale, maybe there hasn't ever been one to this scale, but where's it gone wrong, and what can leaders, whether you're touched by this transaction or not, learn from what's gone wrong around these types of things in the past?
Yeah, I think that there's some common threads here. Where merger acquisition transactions usually struggle is culture and culture fit and alignment with leadership and things like that. When you have companies that come together purely in a financial transaction, that's not the company. The company is not the Excel spreadsheet that your analysts did for you to determine, does this make sense financially? That's not what the company is. Those are outputs of the company or the individual companies. The company is the people that work within it and how they work together and what they value and how they transmit the culture internally and to the agents. Like that's what when we've seen M&A transactions. I'm not going to name anything, but when we've seen M&A transactions that have not gone well, it has usually been because there's some significant differences in the culture of the leadership of the two different companies, right? And that's a little hard. I mean, this one's so big, it's a little hard because just inside Anywhere, you have almost every kind of company, right? You have a lot of different leaders, you have a lot of different brands, you have a lot of different things. Now, and even within Compass is a multi-brand company. Compass has Compass. They also own the App Properties company. They also own the Christie's franchise network. So these are truly multi-brands. Both of these organizations are multi-brand organizations. And so it's a little different, right? It's a little different. So it's probably looking at the culture of the top leadership teams and how that's going to work itself out. That's what to look at. But what I would say as leaders, what you can learn is if you are going to merge, roll somebody in, create a new thing, that get that culture piece right, get the values piece right, make sure everybody agrees on what's valued. How do you teach your agents what value system underpins it all? What sales system underpins it all? Is it a ninja sales philosophy, right? Is that the common glue that can hold things together? So that's what I'd say I'd take away from what we've learned from watching things go wrong. I'd also say in any transaction of this scale, there's a lot of moving parts, y'all. There's a lot of moving parts. So Compass and Anywhere together are going to have to get the right help, the right leadership, the right people in place in a lot of different areas in order to make this be, highly successful. And that's hard. That is I mean, everyone on this Zoom, if you've hired and put a team together, you've made mistakes. That's a hard, the human equation is the hardest part of all of this, and getting that right mix of leadership. If I were sitting in their boardroom, I'd say it's really important we look at, who we're putting in the mix with leadership and making sure that we all agree on the value system and the culture that we're building and get that right. And if you get that right, it'll be great. If you misfire, then you're going to struggle.
The human equation is the exact right way to put it. And I think Mike Staver is one of the best mathematicians of the human equation I've ever seen. So flip that on its head, Mike. Where have you seen because you've seen the real estate industry for many years, but you've worked outside of the industry and you do work with people outside the industry. Where have you seen the culture piece of a large scale transaction like this go right? What did they do? What were the things that through that year-long process or whatever it was that you saw those leaders do and you just looked at the end and said, nailed it?
Yeah, I'm reminded of the story of two caterpillars that were sitting on the front porch of a caterpillar bar. Don't know if you knew that there are caterpillar bars, but these two caterpillars are having a conversation and they're talking and they're just talking about how great things are and how fortunate they've been and how great their industry is. And about that time, they look up and a butterfly is flying over the two caterpillars. And one caterpillar looks at the other caterpillar and says, I'll tell you one thing, you're never getting me up in one of those. And there's a lot of people who see the world that way. And so what I see of the transactions I've been involved with, never quite to that scale, but close in a couple of cases, is when the acquiring organization, I know this is being talked about as a merger, et cetera, but when the pursuer, in this case, Compass, believes that the organization they are acquiring or joining is as smart as they are or smarter, things tend to go better. When the acquiring company says, well, we must be better because we're in the acquisition seat or we're in the driver's seat, that's when it goes bad. So I think the companies that nail it are companies that go in with questions and an opportunity to learn and to get better themselves. And seeing that it isn't, well, we must be better because we were more powerful or we were the first mover or we had the money or whatever it is. I think humility and a curious heart and the desire to understand what our new partners are doing better than us and then integrating that. Anytime there is a sense that I know better or I know more or I must be smarter, is when things start to break apart. And I think to your point, Jack, that's when leadership starts to splinter because we don't come in with humility and a curious heart and a curious mind, wanting to understand and wanting to learn, and saying, I think together we can take this industry to a better place. And I think that's where I see it go the best.
I love this. Well, thank you all for giving your perspectives, for having the conversation, not just with me, but with everybody that was willing to take some time and listen to what you had to say. This is incredibly valuable stuff. Larry, I want to have you wrap it up because you are the guy who has a framework for things. You've been there before, and you're the master of experiencing change and documenting for predictable outcomes. When you look at this, what comes up for you over the next 12 months, if you're an organizational leader in this space, whether you're running that big company, running that small team, or just running your small one-person business where you and the man in the mirror are fighting battles every day, what should people be doing?
Well, good leaders clarify the future. And right now, the future for a lot of people is uncertain or unmuddy, or it's muddy. Anytime you can bring certainty as a leader, I think that's important. And I think the way you do that is by having people focus on their circle of control. It's the Stephen Covey 3 circles. Outer circle is the circle of concern. Right now, everybody's concerned about what does this mean for me? What does this mean for the industry? The middle circle is the circle of influence. And then the middle circle is the circle of control. Where you have certainty is in the circle of control. You can actually control, it's what's happening. Okay, what's my response to what's happening? What can I control? What can I influence? Let's focus on that. Certainly, as a leader, you want to be able to influence, and it's the middle circle, you want to be able to influence your people and give them clarity, give them a sense of control over what they're doing. I think as a leader, it's a pretty basic business, really. You've got to attract and keep talented people. So attraction is important and retention is important. And then you've got to help turn that talent into performance. That's a coaching function. You've got to be able to do that. That's whether you're a small organization or a larger one. If you want to be a successful organization, you've got to be able to attract and keep good people and help them, become the best they can be. I mean, that's That's pretty basic. And I think that's what I would focus on as a leader, you know, in any kind of change, but especially in the change that's occurring right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, you are the three wise men of my life, or maybe just wise guys, but whatever the case is, thanks for spending some time with us today. Obviously, T360 and Staver and Larry Kendall are all going to have commentary on this as it unfolds over the coming 12 months. And maybe we can circle back up and have this chit chat every few months just to say, like, where are we? What are we seeing along the way? But know that I really appreciate you all today, and I appreciate everybody that tuned in to listen to this. The one thing that I'll leave you with is Jack Miller is excited about the future, and you should be too.